So, team, I was going to tell you the story of a Washington Post piece on how someone wore an offensive costume to a party, I think it was 2 years ago, and now that person is the subject of a story, and they've been fired 2 years later. Not a public person, but fired from her job as a government contractor. I want to go into some detail with that story tomorrow. I also, and this is a big story in the Washington Post, I shouldn't say big, but it's making a lot of rounds on social media. I also know somebody who was at the party. So I have a source who was there, and I want to talk to him or her. I haven't had a chance yet, so I wanted to hold back on that because I know somebody who was at the party in question, and a big portion of the story, the narrative around all of this is that there is collective guilt on everybody who was at the party. So obviously I have to protect my source here. But if you were just at a party where someone else wore an offensive, it was Megyn Kelly in blackface was the Halloween costume. That was what this person did. Obviously incredibly stupid, incredibly dumb. But I want to tell you more about that tomorrow. So I'm going to have to leave that one as a teaser for tomorrow. That'll be a good Friday because I'll break down the whole thing in substantial detail. I mentioned at the top of the show, I didn't want to leave you hanging, so you'll have to join me on that one tomorrow. Also, I want to ask you, please continue to go read my piece on wartime conservatism on bucksexton.com. Because all of you shared it, read it, and you know, because it did as well as it did now, I'm having producer Mark is going to make sure that I write every week now for this thing, at least a column for our site for the Freedom Hut for bucksexton.com. I'll have to write an original column every week now. And that's because clearly there's a need for this, and it resonated with all of you. So I'm going to now start doing that. It might not be very long. Maybe it'll only be 500 or 600 words, but I'll have something there. And if I can, I'm going to start doing it more than once a week. But I want to thank all of you who read it and shared it, because you're voting, you're speaking by sharing. You're a part of getting that word out. And it was very much noted here, and the piece was very successful. So thank you for that. And I cannot tell you how much, we don't grow this show because we hang on anyone's coattails and talk so much endlessly about our best buddy who's some big person in the business that we're hoping is going to just continue to prop us up. We do this on our own and have been growing a very successful show because of all of you. And we do it the right way. We play this game with honor and with dignity and with decency and good content and excellent research. So we're going to continue to do that. And if you hear any noise out there from some of the sort of older, crankier, nastier, dirty pool player types, I'm going to try to just avoid getting into any of that. It's not worth it. Because you notice I don't do this. Do you hear me trashing fellow conservatives that are supportive of the Trump administration on this show? Do you hear me trashing them? No, you don't, do you? Do you hear me calling out people by name and saying that they're a joke and they're nasty and they're no. I don't do that kind of stuff. Some people do, and if you're enough of an avid consumer of conservative media, you may come across some of that. But here's the real problem. Everywhere that this show gets placed, it is successful. Everywhere that this show gets picked up on radio, it does very well, including doing better than shows that it has replaced in markets across the country. So we just keep doing that. And I keep asking all of you to please continue to listen, continue to share the podcast. And I will let my work speak for itself, because all of you who listen to this show, especially those of you who have been doing it for a long time, know that that's just how we roll here. That's how we do it. So that's my sense on that. But we will return to this story tomorrow. Oh, and yeah, and there's someone out there who's actually gone on a tear and has said things about me that are just flatly untrue. And I just, again, untrue about my work, untrue about all kinds of there's no need to get into it. And I would just note that Dinesh D'Souza earlier on this show completely agreed with me, and Rush Limbaugh completely agrees with me because he read my Twitter thread on his show that we need more platforms and we need more of a sense of team. And some greedy established folks out there should probably just slow their roll a little bit and think about something other than their own fame, their own fortune, and how they work so hard. We all work hard in this business and in all businesses. All right. Everyone listening to the show works hard. I think it's kind of funny. It's really a form of narcissism to describe that one is outworking everybody else, and that's the reason for success. Yeah, that and clinging for dear life onto the coattails of somebody who was already very successful. All right, let's get to this Bolton situation. Now, I got to tell you, if there's so many layers that I have here for you, so many things that I want to say about this. First off, if Bolton is able to write a book without going through, and I know about this because I was in the CIA and had a TSSCI clearance and am subject. If I ever wrote a book about my time in the CIA, there is a 0% chance that I wouldn't run it through Langley for clearance. 0% chance. Because I know my obligation, right? I mean, I'm talking about other things all the time and everything else. And you'll notice I don't tell a lot of stories about my time in the CIA, largely because unless I've really cleared them, I'm not comfortable doing that because I don't want to ever break my oath to protect classified. And I was just a worker bee, right? I mean, I did some cool stuff, briefed the president a few times, NBD. But I was somebody who was doing the work day to day, and I was somebody who very clearly was doing everything in his power to assist those who were in the more senior levels, right? And that includes people like the National Security Advisor. If the National Security Advisor can write a book without getting pre-publication clearance, nobody should have to go through this, right? If the person who is the senior most National Security Advisor to the president of the, and I mean this for any president, this isn't even about Trump. This is separate from Trump, but I want to get this on the record. The whole process is a joke, and the many people who listen to this show who either have or have had clearances because they know that I bring a knowledge to this because of my background, too, that they respect because they've done similar things. None of us should have to submit our books for pre-publication review, right? Rob O'Neill, who wrote the book about the bin Laden raid, tweeted out in response to me yesterday, yeah, he couldn't even say 6 in his book. What was he referring to with 6? I don't know, I guess. Better make sure no one refers to J something else. I don't know what that could be. This is absurd, but this is what we all go through. Bolton is writing a book that he gets a $2 million advance for, and it has not received full national security. And the review process is absurd. It's wrong. It's dumb. Now, there should be some review process, but I'm telling you, I mean, if I wrote, hey, I'm Buck Sexton, I worked in the CIA, and I was no James Bond, though. I was doing policy work or something like that. They'll probably black out James Bond. And you say, why? Well, it's a fictional character. Yeah, just trying to be careful, because there could be an international super spy running around named James Bond who wears a tuxedo for no apparent reason and is really good at driving speedboats and helicopters while smoking a cigarette. So they're absurd with that stuff. The Bolton stories, and I'll spend more time on this tomorrow, the stories that Bolton has in this book, I'm trying to get to read the whole book. I'm planning to do that. The stories that exist already out there, it's tough to say how much of them I think are total BS. But I'm starting with what we know. If he didn't pre-clear the book before publishing it, he's in violation and should be held to account. And if he also... so just start with that. And that he would write this book at this time with the sitting president in office. This is such an act of egregious personal disloyalty, not to Donald Trump, but to the office of the presidency. You were the gosh darn national security advisor, and you're going to go out and trade on the private conversations you have with the president of the United States while he's still the president? And running for re-election? No honor, no integrity. And I'll tell you this, a very, very senior government official, when I first started at the CIA in 2005, a very senior government person, intel person, sat me down once. And I remember asking about John Bolton, because he had just become, around then, I forget, I think it was U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations. I said, what do you think of this guy? And I can't repeat on air what he said. And I knew that this guy's now since passed away, so I wouldn't be revealing any. Well, I mean, I guess you still have to keep your confidence even when someone passes away, but he wouldn't be in any reputational damage or anything. So I have no beef with Bolton personally. I don't know him. I think he's a neocon warmonger. I think that's a fair criticism. I think he's very quick to send your children or some of you listening to this to go fight in far-off battlefields with no hope of real lasting strategic victory. That's for sure. But just the two things, not pre-publishing, not pre-clearing the book, and also the disloyalty involved in this, makes me think that this guy is being scummy. And I'll tell you about more of the stories that he tells tomorrow. We got a first-timer on the show joining us now to talk about what's going on with the Capitol Hill Occupy protest in Seattle, the attempt to replicate it in Portland, and just what the crazy stuff the left has been up to in general. Ian Miles Chong of Human Events is with us now. Ian, great to have you on, man. Welcome.
Thanks for having me on. How's it going?
The country's in rough shape right now. I know you're actually outside the continental U.S., but you're following very closely the situation in Seattle. What can you tell us about the latest? And from your research into this group, how's the Capitol Hill Occupy protest coming along?
I think it's coming along the way they want it to come along, right? There's not much organization, but it's certainly got the city of Seattle looking really bad, and it's inspiring Antifa across the country, other parts of the country, to essentially try to do the same thing. But it's not really working out so well in that regard. I mean, in Seattle, I'm not really sure why they haven't shut that down yet. And the longer it goes on, the more it's going to inspire. But last night, they tried to set up a autonomous zone, so to speak, in Portland, in front of Mayor Ted Wheeler's house. It didn't last very long. The police tore it down this morning.
Wait a second. So the mayor of Portland, who is definitely somebody who's very favorable to the left, they wanted to set up an Occupy thing in front of his house, and he had the cops go right in there and shut that whole thing down right away. Almost like these guys on the left, these left-wing Democrat politicians, when it's in their neighborhood, in this case, right in their, almost in their yard, then Occupy stuff isn't so cute anymore, Ian.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, imagine if they would have set it up in front of the mayor's house in Seattle. I'm sure she would have it shut down immediately. But instead, she's claiming it's the summer of love. It's got a block party atmosphere. Any news station that goes down there reports that it's a really nice place. Everybody's happy and it's not really serious, except when the protesters come by, the Antifa people come by, and they get upset. They're like, no, it is very serious, and you need to stop calling it a block party, because it is not a block party. For these people, these vagrants, whatever you want to call them, people living in Chaz or Chop or whatever, it's very serious for them. For them, this is it's like a revolution. It's more than just Occupy Wall Street was 8 years ago. Now it's like they're fighting against capitalism. They're fighting against white supremacy. It's they said they'll win by any means necessary. This is in interviews that they've given. All their leaders are saying this. So the fact that people are trying to downplay it may not work to their favor.
I think we'll have to see how much longer this whole thing is able to continue on. To that end, Ian, do we have any sense of whether the protesters are in contact or are still calling for other cities? We know Portland tried here, and they're certainly thinking back to the Occupy movement of 2011, which went on for months and was in lots of cities all over the country in different ways. That was usually people seizing public space of some kind, a park, a square. Do we have any sense as to whether they're trying to expand still? And also, are their demands staying the same?
Yes, the demands are staying the same. It's all about abolishing the police, abolishing the state. It's one at a time, but they are intending to dismantle the United States of America. They're very serious about this. And they have expanded, at least they tried to expand to Asheville, North Carolina. It was shut down as well. It was last week that they tried this. But they keep trying, but police locally have less patience in most cities than they do in Seattle, it seems, or at least the cities have less patience. So I don't think they'll be as successful there, but they can keep trying. And, as long as this keeps going on, as long as no one's stepping in to stop the anarchy and the chaos, it's got this broken window effect of, policing on the rest of the cities in the United States of America. And that's not very good.
No, that is certainly not a good thing. But it is interesting to watch the police. And I know you've been sharing some of the video here of what happened in Portland. They deployed officers and they shut this thing down. Maybe they're learning lessons in some of these very blue cities about, you give the loony left an inch, they're going to take a mile. But I also wanted to ask you about what you're seeing. Well, this is interesting. You're in Malaysia right now. I know you write for Human Events. You're the managing editor there. But you're in Malaysia, and we have this whole surge of a return to the COVID lockdown here. I want to talk to you about that in the U.S. context. But since you're in a foreign country and since they've had to deal with COVID-19, what's it like over there right now with this pandemic?
Well, the lockdowns have been really, really strict. I mean, take the lockdowns that you've seen in perhaps the strictest places in America and multiply it by 10. People were getting arrested just for going out for a walk over here. But people, for the most part, they got used to it after a while. There were a few hundred or a few thousand arrests early on, and they wanted to let people know that everything was serious, that people were serious. As a result, we've had in Malaysia fewer than 200 deaths. It's something like 120 deaths total. And keep in mind, this is a country with a population of 30 plus million. It's some places very densely packed. And most people, it seems, who were infected were illegal immigrants living in very, very close spaces. Because everybody else, like the old folks especially, they were not really affected because they were not exposed to people with it. Now, this is the opposite of what happened in New York City, where because of Cuomo's orders, most old people who were already exposed to it were basically spreading it to each other in these old folks' homes. And as a result, many of them, 46%, I think, or 46,000 people died in America, and they were all in these care homes. So that was a bad policy. Maybe we should open it up a bit, but not necessarily open up the stores, but allow people to go outside and walk, because no one's getting sick on the outside. You're going to a beach, you're not interacting with somebody face to face. I don't see why that needs to.
What's it like there now? I mean, you said are you still under the very strict lockdown, or have things relaxed?
No, the lockdowns have been relaxed. The only things that haven't opened are maybe pubs, bars, but everything else, even restaurants, have all completely reopened. I was at a barber yesterday, as a matter of fact, and they did some track and tracing stuff where, the barber, he came up to me, he had a thermometer, he checked my temperature. I signed a piece of paper and put my phone number there, no address, basically informing other people that if so, the idea is that if somebody's sick, then people on this day would be contacted, right? He'd reach out and say, hey, you probably should get tested. So that's about the extent of it. Businesses are open, everything's fine. You just have to just sanitize, right? I didn't even wear a mask. That's the thing. It wasn't required. No one's required to do so because everybody's playing it safe, playing it clean,
All right. Well, Ian, keep up the good work over at Human Events, my friend. Thank you very much for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
It's time for roll call.
Indeed, roll call time. One of my favorite times. And tomorrow, remember, we will have roll call voicemail, the penalty box. Producer Mark will make sure that we've got some great. Have we already got some good ones lined up?
I don't know. That's how I spend my Thursday evenings now.
Yeah. Mrs. Mark is going to be unhappy with me at some point here. But, for right now, it is nice to hear their voices on the show. So
I'm glad you enjoy it.
I'm sure we've got some good ones. The folks appreciate it. They appreciate it. So, any news from producer Mark World this week, or everything pretty much just status quo?
I don't really do anything, Buck. I stay in my apartment all day, all night.
Well, that's everybody, though. We're all. When they used to say we're all in this together, that wasn't true politically, but we are all in this together insofar as if you live in a place still under lockdown, you pretty much have the choices of being at home, working from home, eating, and sleeping.
I mean, either way, when we're working from home, where am I going to go? I don't even have a car anymore.
That's a good point. Yeah. The city's very quiet right now.
Definitely not going to New York City for a trip, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Things get spicy here. Ernest I wish you would disregard Alex Jones in considering Austin. He doesn't have any more presence here than anywhere else. Oh, okay. Ernest, I'm going to eat you. I'm going to eat Ernest, my neighbor. Eat him. I live in a moderately bougie neighborhood, and this morning during my morning walk, I noticed honk if you care chalked on the sidewalk next to the obligatory fist. But it's way less imperious than NYC, just some kids virtue signaling. As for Chaz, they don't want to be autonomous now because as a sovereign nation, their military would have to face ours. Well, Ernest, it sounds like a kind of a drop in the pile for a move to Austin, so we'll have to see if that works out. I have a family member who's going to be spending a lot of time in Austin coming up here soon, and he may be moving there, so we might have a sort of Team Buck bro outpost, if you know what I mean, down there. One of my brothers might be spending a lot of time in Austin, so I'll be hearing about it from him, and I'm definitely going to be visiting him, so that means that I will be spending some time down there. Producer Mark, I'll do the proper recon, don't worry.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
That's what I'm here for. Michael, hey, Buck, a point that seems to be missed about social media and cancel culture is that it is a perfect example of the oppression of a pure democracy, something that founders warned us of. The shouts, disruptions, and tyranny of the mob drown out all thoughts or ideas they disagree with, despite the protection of the Bill of Rights. The real danger is if this cancer escapes the internet and gains overwhelming power in the real world. It illustrates the danger of pure democracy and the fundamental importance of our republic and the Bill of Rights for us all, shields high. Michael, I agree with your assessment of why a pure democracy, and really what you're referring to would be called ochlocracy or a mobocracy. Oklos, O-C-H-L-O-S in ancient Greek being, I believe, the mob or the crowd. So an ochlocracy is ruled by the mob. And we are seeing what that's like right now. And it's also a reminder that the Constitution only defends us if enough people buy into what the Constitution is and says and are willing to defend it. All right, the Constitution is an idea, right? If you're out on the street and you get mobbed by a bunch of, Antifa thugs, and they start throwing rocks at you, and you start yelling, "But I'm protected by the Constitution!" The Constitution's not going to arrive on a helicopter and kick their butts and save you, right? I mean, Constitution is not some superhero that arrives just in the nick of time. Nope. So you have to think of this as, unless we have widespread agreement throughout our society on the value, on the necessity of the Constitution, then it is just a piece of paper. I mean, it's an idea, right? And the idea is supposed to bind so many of our other institutions, and it's the foundation for our institutions. It is the original creation document for them. But people will discard it. And now you've got Supreme Court justices who are discarding it, and a majority of them. And they're doing it on issues that really matter. That's very troubling. I can't say that I think that that's a good thing for our future. It's really, it's very concerning. Tammy, dear Buck, I've been with you since the beginning, OSS, and I'm so happy to tell you the radio station in Central Kansas, where I'm the office manager, is adding your show to our lineup starting July 6th. Sorry for yelling, but I'm quite excited about this. I've been talking about this for years in the office, about you for years in the office. I cannot wait for our Central Kansas listeners to hear the Buck Sexton Show. Well, Tammy, that's awesome. Thank you. Wow, that's great. We got a listener that's lobbying for us to get added to a station, and now we're on that station, Producer Mark.
See, Team Buck really helps us out when we need it.
Another one. See what happened there with the station? Yeah.
You're going to lose all your cool cards soon enough.
I know. I got to come up with a different cool
It's like you're a dad without a child.
Yeah, I know. That's actually a pretty good description of me, I think. I've got dad-like tendencies without actually being a dad yet, I like dad jeans. I like dad bod, But
dad jokes.
Dad jokes. But I got to actually be a dad. All right. But Tammy, that is awesome. Thank you so much. And we're excited. I don't even know. You know this before I do. I don't even know what this station is. So it hasn't been announced to me yet. So that's great news. Got some listeners in Central Kansas coming our way. Nikolai. Producer Mark may be wrong. I believe the man-hater expression you were looking for is Joy Behar! Producer Mark, why aren't you spending more time with Joy?
I don't even know how to respond to that.
Yeah, that's probably a fair point. Yeah, Joy Behar is, look, she is quite a character. I mean, you can say that about her. So, and she's on The View. She's on The View. There's that. I've said all I'm going to say on that for today. I do and I don't. Kyle writes, Buck, there used to be a yacht in Palm Beach named the Buck Passer that was owned by the Phipps family. Every time I hear about passing the buck, I think of that vessel. If you move down here, you could carry on the name when you buy your first boat. Bonus points, you could also participate in the Trump boat parades. The Buck Passer. I love that. That's awesome. If I have a boat, that would be a great name for it.
Great.
But
Well,
then wouldn't I be passing myself?
I mean, I guess that's true. I'll get a boat and name it the Buck Passer.
Isn't there, wasn't the video game with the gun, you shoot the deer, wasn't it Buckmaster?
I think it's Buck Hunter.
Oh, Buck
Because you're
Hunter.
hunting bucks.
I think you're right. Well, was there a show called Buckmaster? I don't know.
Well, I can look.
Or maybe it's a camo clothing company or something. I'm telling you, there's something. Tell me what the Buckmaster. There's something that's a Buckmaster.
Big Buck Hunter is like at arcades. I just Googled it.
Yeah, that's Buck Hunt. No, I know.
There's a website it's for deer hunting. Buckmaster's everything for. I'm giving them
everything. See, I told you. I'm
giving them free publicity here.
Yeah,
but
free pub. You know, I should probably get a sponsorship from them. Right?
That'd be nice.
Buck advertising for Buckmaster.
Yeah.
It's like it's like PB&J with Nutella. It's just going to be amazing.
Gross.
Is that great?
I hate peanut butter, so you can't ask me that question, but I find that gross.
I would not have expected that.
Yeah, no, it's my least favorite food.
Wow.
Yeah.
So no Reese's Pieces for you?
None. Like, even the smell of peanut butter makes me want to vomit.
Wow, okay.
I know it's a hot take, but
that is a sizzling hot take from producer Mark. All right, let's get to and Kyle already told us about the yacht. Well, I've got a yacht called the Buck Passer. It's very fancy. It's fantastic. It goes fast, and the crew is excellent. Jay, Buck, love the show. I truly believe that once Rush retires, you will be the conservative voice on radio. About the recent Supreme Court decisions, I have some thoughts. Jay, thank you for that. It's very kind of you. Which I was thrilled to see echoed in articles by the Federalist when I woke up this morning. Regarding the LGBT decision, I think Gorsuch is playing the long game. It may be a short-term victory for the LGBT folks, but by introducing the issue of sex specifically, I think he is laying the groundwork for later determining what is the definition of sex, gender. Jay, first of all, thank you for your kind words about me and the show, and that means a lot. I have no idea how we can. I don't see this. Maybe you're seeing something I don't. With Gorsuch playing the long game, I'm going to have to process. I'm going to have to process and think on that one a little bit. I think this was nothing but an abdication of his constitutional responsibility, and it's because Gorsuch doesn't want to be the bad guy. You know, it's not fun to be the bad guy. The libs, the left, they come after you. They control the culture. It's no good. So. But let me think about how this could be this is what you were laying the groundwork for later determining what is the definition of sex. How would that come up in court? What is the definition of sex / gender? I don't see it, Jay, but I appreciate the thought, and I'm going to think on it more. And I always uphold that I could be missing something. I mean, this audience is full of people who are insightful and brilliant, and I don't know everything. That's why I got to have producer Mark here to make sure I'm reminded sometimes of when I get something wrong, or when I am late.
I'm very good at Googling and sports knowledge.
It's Googling and sports knowledge. That's right. More roll call. Dan writes, Sexton, your call to action among conservatives on Tuesday's show is great, but needs concrete steps. Otherwise, it isn't a true call to action. The left excels in this arena, and we on the right need to take some cues from their playbook. For example, Any corporate entity that capitulates to the mob no longer gets my business. This means I will never watch a New Orleans Saints game like Drew Brees, or Drew Brees rather, buy a Saints jersey, physically visit New Orleans, or even play as the Saints on Madden 20. The left is extremely good at hitting where it hurts. The wallet, we need to get better at that. Dan, I think you're right about taking individual action that takes into account what your principles are and who you want to support. The Drew Brees thing, this reminds me a little of that coach from Oklahoma State as well, where, look, these guys want to keep their jobs, and I wish they had the courage of their convictions, but, they're going to apologize. But people who are supposed to be in the idea business or who are politicians, for them to bend the knee is where I really just lose all patience. But that said, Dan, yeah, I think you should put your dollars exactly where you think they should go and support those who share your values and are spreading messages that are helpful to the country. And if that means, look, I'm going to tell you this. If they start doing kneeling a lot at these NFL games, once the NFL starts again, I'm not going to watch. And I used to watch, but producer Mark is laughing. I did used to watch a fair amount of football. I'm not going to watch NFL games. I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it. So I also don't understand why the president brought up yesterday that Colin Kaepernick should get another shot. The president, I feel like I've been, I've really understood where he's coming from on so many things for so long. And I'm not surprised by a lot of them. A lot of things that he does that the mainstream media goes, oh, I don't understand. I'm like, oh, of course that's what Trump did. It doesn't shock me at all. I'm not really seeing the Trump matrix right now. It's not clear to me what's going on. I think that there's like a disturbance in the force of Trumpism. Something's happening right now. And I can't give you a better explanation of it than that. Derek, after listening to Wednesday's pod, you seem somewhat defeated. While I understand the sentiment, I don't think things are quite as bad as you think. My wife and I are black, and we've been speaking out more and more about our support for Trump and conservatism in general. We're seeing more people who are at least thinking about how out of touch the left is. Additionally, I work for a very liberal institution and have picked my spots to speak up. I really hope we'll win this war. Shields high. Well, Derek, hey, I need to hear that. Thank you so much for writing in. It sounds like you are executing on your own action plan for conservatism in this country and making this a better country for all of us. Even the crazy libs get to live in the better country that we're trying to make, right? I want freedom for everybody. I want constitutional protections and individual liberty and economic prosperity and freedom of speech and freedom of religion. I want this for everyone. Even the crazy Antifa, even the crazy left-wing libs who want to silence everybody and all this other stuff. I want them to be living in a better, more free, more prosperous country. I'm not looking to have them destroyed, ruined, humiliated, all this other stuff. And I'm certainly not looking to do that to fellow conservatives in the media who are fighting for the same cause, although some people who you would think would be above that are not. Let's see here. Angela. But Derek, thank you so much, and shields high to you. Angela, hey, Buck. I can't even begin. I'm going to have to add the T for her. I can't even begin to articulate how frustrated I am. At what point will the American conservatives unite, stand up, and say enough already? We, including me, have sat back and the left pushed us around and forced all their ideas on us. I certainly don't approve of racism nor any race being mistreated, but we've gone way beyond that. What if every conservative refuses to buy any tickets or merchandise if NASCAR removes the national anthem? What if every conservative refuses to spend a dime with Amazon until they remove their Blue Lives Kill shirts? I don't even know that was a thing. What if conservatives say they won't attend another Oklahoma State game or even pay for their kids to go there if their system is going to cave to someone offended by a news channel T-shirt? At what point are we going to say, shove it? We are done caving in to your crazy leftism. Angela, well put, well written, well said. This is, if we want this to change, then we have to change it. If we want this to be different, this is the way. What you're talking about, taking action, is just the way to do it. And individuals can take action that really does matter. Now going to the Instagram account, Buck Sexton on Instagram. We've got Mark, who writes, longtime Freedom Hut listener. Would you be able to provide some insight into how a young professional can work in one of the federal agencies like the CIA, FBI? It's been tough getting more info online. Any tips would help. Yeah, Mark, find people like me who are retired or left those places and left on good terms with them and ask them, reach out to them. Anybody who worked at FBI or CIA who cared about the mission will care about good people going to work there going forward. So just find people that you can talk to in person, and they'll help guide you. That's going to be it for today, team. Please pass the buck. Go to bucksexton.com. Spread the podcast around.